Bendición, bendición. So this video is another history video. I got great reception on the first one from Ma Monserrate González Chango Batero. So I'm going to do one on Efuche. Before I jump into her, and yes, like most of my videos, I'm going to be speaking quickly because there's a lot of information that I got to get through. So I forgot to mention that documentation-wise, at least according to Dr. Willie Ramos, he has an article or a police report, not a police report, but we know that Ma Monserrate moved at least by 1873 to Matanzas because the first drumming in Matanzas, public drumming, I guess, a permit was ordered by Ma Monserrate. We have the police records of asking for that the permit for that drumming, and we know that it took place 1873 on December 6th, the Chango's Day, St. Barbara's Day. So I want to throw that in there. I forgot to put that in the last video. Okay, so Efuche. Keep in mind also that there are 0 photos, so it's just going to be looking at my ugly mug the whole time. There's 0 photos of Efuche Latuan, unfortunately. So, Nya Rosalia Gramosa Abreu Efuche Ochosi Warikondo. That's her full name. Now, whenever you see the name Nya or Nyo before a person's name, it indicates that that person came directly from Yoruba land. And they are not a Creole, they're not Cuban born. So, Nya Rosalia. Ma Monserrate, she is Yoruba born, but she's more famous for being called Mama. Ma Monserrate. But she could very well be called Nya Monserrate. Just throwing that out there as well. So, Efuche, born circa, not 100%. Remember, documentation very scarce, especially on this woman, Efuche. Born circa 1804, like Ma Monserrate. Died 1903. Although I've seen, I want to say up to like 1920. So I don't know. I'm going with the most logical account, 1903 thus far. Okay? Unless we get proof that proves otherwise. Okay, so Efuche is what I'm going to be calling her. That's what she's most known as. Whenever you hear her in the Ibae, most people just say Efuche. People don't say the full name like you heard. So this woman is single-handedly the absolute, undisputed, most influential pillar and founder of Havana, Ocha, as we know it today. What Adechina is to Ifa, what Ma Monserrate is to Matanzas Ocha, Efuche is to Havana Ocha. Notice that I stress Havana Ocha because we know that Ma Monserrate, she's like the quote-unquote queen of Matanzas. Okay, this is not an actual title. The only Oba that we have of Cuba or royalty would be Tata Gaitan, and he was called the Oba of Cuba. Efuche was not the Ayaba of Cuba. Might as well have been. Shit. But I just call her the queen, Ma Monserrate, the queen of Matanzas, and Efuche, the queen of Havana. But that is not official. That's just me. So regarding her personal life, there is little to nothing regarding the personal life of Efuche. We don't know what she looked like. We don't know what her personality was, but we can make educated guesses and inferences by later on what we see, the kind of woman that she was and what she did and the influence that she had. But we don't know the plantation or where she came from or what, very, very little information. What we do know is that she is not a Cuban Creole, but indeed a Yoruba land native, most likely of Oyo, due to the fact that Havana Ocha is indeed Oyo-centric. We already said in Matanzas it's Egbado-centric, and Havana is Oyo-centric. When I say Oyo-centric, I mean the means by which a person is initiated, the protocols are Oyo-centric. Continuing on. Outside of that, Efuche may, not 100%, but may have crowned Latuan. Her name, that escapes me. Latuan, her right hand, may have crowned Latuan in Cuba. There's speculation about that. even though we know that Latuan herself did indeed come from Yoruba land. But perhaps, speculation, maybe she was not crowned in Nigeria, but indeed Cuba. Just throwing that out there. Latuan was Efuche's right hand, and some say protege of Efuche. If Efuche did indeed crown her in Cuba, that would make her a protege. But we know that those two were thick as thieves, super duper tight. Just like Latuan and Oba Di Meyi were super duper tight. Two super duper influential people, but the video is not about them. Efuche, her alagbatori, her crown orisha, is mostly agreed upon to be Ochosi, but some stress that she was actually an Olobatala, citing that the name, the Uruko is the name of your Ocha name. Warikondo is a name given to a child of Obatala. I personally, this is me now getting back to my personal thoughts, because there's academic research and then there's my opinion. So this is my opinion. I personally lean on Efuche being a child of Obatala because Ochosi is such a rare Orisha, especially in the 1860s. It seems more realistic that she was made to Obatala. Plus, she is Oyo-centric, and Oyo is Chango, the land of Chango. Ochosi is Ketu. Ochosi and the Ketu people had a huge influence in Brazilian candomblé. Ochosi is so famous in Brazil. And if Efuche was made to Ochosi, I would imagine that his importance and worship would have been as if it is in Brazil, but it's not. Ochosi is so rare, even to this day. Little interesting fact, there's more Ochosis made in the U.S. than there are made in Cuba, has ever been. So this is just my opinion. In some sources, they say that she may have been a child of Yegua, another santo that is more famous in Brazil than in Cuba. But if Ochosi is rare and unrealistic, then her crown being Yegua is even super more far-fetched, as seeing a Yegua is literally like one in a million. Like a child of Ochosi is rare, a child of Oba is rare, a child of Odua is rare, but a child of Yegua, Naraburuku, in Cuba is like crazy rare. Specifically for Havana. Remember, you have the Arara and the Matanzas. Though Yegua is a bit more common over there, but we're focusing on Havana and Efuche. You know, I get sidetracked. Efuche is the root of the rama, the branch called Millonarios branch. That's the rama. And the root of various sub-ramas, all encompassed by the cabildo named San Jose Ochenta, which was founded by a woman, Ña Caridad Argudin Ochosi Aigoro. Another Ochosi. How rare is that? And the Ña, a woman from Yoruba land. What do I mean by this when I say that Efuche is the root of the Millonarios branch and sub-ramas? Well, San Jose Ochenta was not just a cabildo, but indeed the cabildo of Havana. There were many cabildos, but San Jose Ochenta was Efuche's cabildo. Wasn't founded by her. It was founded by Ña Caridad Argudin. But it was basically hers. She was like the queen of the spot, okay? The founder and the president was Ña Caridad Argudin, but eventually, at the death of one, then he got transferred to Efuche. I believe Latuan took up the mantle eventually. So San Jose Ochenta was not just a cabildo, it was the cabildo. So San Jose Ochenta was a physical home. It was a large colonial style home with various rooms owned by Ña Caridad Argudin Ochosi Aigoro, where cabildo members would perform ceremonies and even live. So these santeras actually lived here and performed full-on initiations and ceremonies in the house. Let's see. So you have ramas like Ña Belén González Apoto Chunlaibo, Ña Caridad Argudin Ochosi Aigoro, Ña Teresita Ariosa en Yochun, Ña Margarita Arbentenos Oya Aina Yogbo, Andrea Trujillo Obatala Iwinyemi, who was made by Efuche. Efuche made Andrea Trujillo Obatala Iwinyemi and would go on to make Susana Cantero Yamayao Mitoque of the Coral lineage. Not to mention possibly Latuan. So, okay, Efuche, it made Andrea Trujillo Iwinyemi, who would go on to make Susana Cantero. We know Susana Cantero is famous for the Coral lineage, but her madrina was of the Efuche Millonarios. So the actual root of Coral would still be millonarios, would still be Efuche. So notice that all of the nyas, these women, these Yoruba land native women, I imagine, this is just personal thoughts here. I imagine if we walk into that place, into that cabildo between 1855 and 1905, about. If you walked into the house and you walked into this cabildo, you most likely would have heard Spanish in the streets and pure Yoruba in the cabildo. That's just an observation of mine, nothing that's been researched, but I imagine these women were from Nigeria. What language would they have spoken amongst themselves? Pure Yoruba, logically. Just thinking logically. I could be completely wrong. But these women came from Nigeria, all speak in the same language, maybe different dialects. My region speaks differently from your region, but Spanish from Mexico is going to be slightly different than Spanish from Puerto Rico, but it's still Spanish. You get my drift? So I think that's just amazing how it would have been if you just step back in time and walk into San Jose Ochenta in 1875, 1880, and Efuche's there, and all these women, and they're speaking fluent Yoruba. Something that doesn't exist today in Cuba. Not as a spoken language, at least. So number 2, I named a bunch of roots, ramas of Ocha, but who exactly was overseeing each ceremony? Who was making sure that everything was up to her specifications? Efuche. So, okay, in the Efuche Millonarios lineage, when you're crowned, the orishas of the Yawo are placed. Here's an example. The orishas of the Yawo are placed in the cabinet or the shelf system where they will stay, and the Yawo will salute every day. This is the Millonarios branch. In the Nyabelen Ochoto Chunlaibo, who is the root of the Pimienta root branch. I'm Pimienta. Most people in the United States are Pimienta, from Aurora Lamar, Pimienta. But the root is Nyabelen. The Yawo's Orisha is placed on the floor for 3 months when Yawo gets home. And so this is a small variant. And Efuche, we can surmise Efuche said, okay, I'll accept that if that's how you want to do things, Nyabelen, Apoto Chunlaibo. But that's only because I allow it and I deem that practice acceptable and it fits within my parameters of Orthodox Ocha. So what I'm getting at is when people say, well, in my lineage, we do things like this. Remember that speaking for specifically Havana Ocha, which most of us are Havana lineage born. Yes, Ño Jose Urquio La Pata de Palo El Guaychupi did come from Matanzas. Did indeed come from Matanzas, but he is Havana lineage. A lot of people like to claim Matanzas for some reason, but they got clearly made Havana style or in Havana. Most people that are made in the United States are pimienta by and large and are Havana style. So I say that a lot of people say, well, in my house we do this, in my house we do that, in my lineage we do this. A lot of it is to justify bullshit that's perpetuated. There are not 50 ramas of Havana Ocha, but instead a handful. And technically at the head of all of them was Efuche. Regardless of whether your root is Pimienta or Aina Yogbo, they were in Havana, San Jose Ochenta, which was overseen by Efuche. So who's truly the root? Technically, Nyabelen is the root of Pimienta. Technically, the root of my lineage. Technically. But who was overseeing everything that she did and giving the okay to say, okay, you want to have your Yawoses put the Santos on the floor for the first 3 months? That's fine. Efuche. So side story. There's a side Rama. I'm getting even deeper into this. There's a sub Rama, I don't know the name of, my apologies, that at some point, maybe the 1910s, 20s, 30s, I don't know, during the persecution of Ocha, due to being unable to bring the future initiate to the river, you couldn't bring the future initiate to the river due to being seen by authorities. So the Yobona or whomever would go to the river with the bucket, do all the secret stuff that's done at the river, and walk back to the house where the future Yawo was standing in a tub, waiting to get the river water dumped on him. And if you know what goes on during the river ceremony, you're probably scratching your head, but well, wait, what about this part of the ceremony? What about that part of the ceremony? No, it was just the future Yawo just stayed home, I guess, standing in the tub. So we have to be understandable. This is an understandable adaptation, let's say in the 1920s. I don't know. Definitely before between 1900 and 1950, somewhere between there. This took place in some rama. But this stuck, and to this day you have houses that claim, well, in my house and in my rama, we don't take the yawo to the river. There are not 50 ramas of Havana Ocha. And the roots of all Havana Ocha had Efuche at the helm overseeing everything. So just keep Efuche in mind. When you hear people say, well, in my lineage, we do this because, or, you know, maybe that Santero was simply taught incorrectly. Just throwing it out there. I'm not claiming to know everything. I'm just food for thought. Let's see. Maybe the Santero was simply taught incorrectly. Because logically, if nothing happened without the approval and oversight of Efuche, and if even Efuche's right hand Latuan was indeed the Oba Di Meyi for most Ochas in Havana between 1875 and 1825 about, she died 1935, she would have been too old maybe to conduct Ochas, and she would have had Oba Di Meyi do things. Either way, the lineage of Efuche, Latuan, Oba Di Meyi, goes back to Efuche. If she was the Oba Di Meyi under Efuche and did most of the Ochas for Efuche, things would have been consistent. Although, yes, other female Oriates did exist, but only with, again, the approval of Efuche and Latuan. Latuan is another huge heavyweight and influence. So yeah, other female Oriates did exist. Other Oriates. The first male Oriate was Oba Di Meyi, and that wasn't until the 1930s, maybe the 1920s. But Latuan, she's the one. But I digress. But there were indeed other female Oriates. With all that in mind, just how different can one Rama be? If we're talking about Havana Ocha, which most of us are, just how different can one Rama be from another when everything had to go through the approval of one Efuche? And Latuan, her right hand, playing an active role in most Ochas in the Ocha room as the Oriate. Plus, most people in the United States are Pimienta lineage, which is Niambelen Gonzalez Apoto Chunlaibo, who we established did things with Efuches within her parameters, Efuche's parameters of acceptance. So why are there 1,000 Pimienta lineages, Santeros, claiming that in my lineage we do things this way, or in another we do things that way, when it all goes back to Efuche? Just food for thought when someone says, in my lineage, okay? There are indeed different variances, different things in lineages, but the core remains the same. Food for thought. What are Efuche's contributions to Ocha? So she almost single-handedly, she laid the basic ground rules for Orisha initiation, period. Like declaring that the 4 pillars of Ocha, or Batala, Yamaya, Chango, and Ochun, a fact that I personally see, furthermore, that substantiates the idea that she was made to Obatala and not to Ochosi, because you would think that she would have replaced one of the 4 pillars with Ochosi, or at least added Ochosi and declared there to be 5 pillars of Ocha, but she didn't. The pillars of Ocha are 4, Obatala, Yamaya, Chango, and Ochun. Let's see. Which goes on, meaning Efuche decided that unless the Yawo receives a minimum of at least 4 Orishas, plus the obligatory Elegua, which has to be present, the initiation is not valid. Efuche is the reason why we all see these 4 basic Orishas, regardless of who your Alagbatori is. In addition, unless these 4 Orisha are received, thus are present, the initiation is not valid. For these are the 4 Orishas who must bear witness to the initiation. Efuche is the reason why we have 4 colors of Ocha: Obatala, Yamaya blue, Ochun yellow, Chango green, red. And which, if you are initiated, you know the significance of these 4 colors and 4 rishas within the Ocha room. Things I can't get into. Another point, Efuche is why originally the Yawo stayed in the throne for 16 days. I've heard 21 days at max, but 16 days was the original time for the Yawo to be in the throne. At some point, got changed to 7. People have lives. Shit, I couldn't stay in no throne for 16 days. But I have met one person that did stay in the throne for 16 days. So she's the one who dictated the Yawo's gonna, these are the Orisha that's most important. These are the colors that are most important. These are the days that the Yawo's gonna stay in the throne. Continuing on. Efuche organized and structured all of the protocols, meaning that she decided the now the protocols. We're going to do things in this order. We're going to do the Bajada de Santo. Later, we're going to do the Ebo Entrada. Later, then we're going to tend to Egun. Then we're going to take the Yawo to the river. Then we're going to do the stuff that we got to do with the Yawo when the Yawo gets back to the river. These are the plans for Osain. These are These are what it takes to consecrate Orisha. This is what it takes to consecrate Orisha to the Awo's head. This is how we perform animal sacrifice. This is how we do Ita. This is how we do the Eboriate. After the person's crown, these are the songs, these are the chants, these are the order of everything. And this is what it takes to crown someone. These are the chants. This is the vocabulary. This is what I dictate is going to be. Now, with all that said, I think it's safe to say that it was a collective effort to some degree, as you know, there were many knowledgeable Yoruba natives present. It wasn't like Nyabelen. These are personal thoughts of mine. It wasn't like Nyabelen and Nyateresitas, etc. We're sitting around saying, yes, please teach us old wise one Efuche. No, Efuche simply consolidated all of the knowledge that existed into one organized ceremony that we know today, the Yoko Ocha ceremony, and preserved the secrets of multiple Orisha as a result. The next contribution is indeed debatable, and possibly actually maybe it was Oba Di Meyi that introduced this, but I'm speaking of the composite Odu. Some say Yorita consisted of one Odu for each Orisha, and that one Odu either came in Ire or Osobo, and that's it. As for your consejos and the advice that came from Yorita, all Orishas would be like Elegua says Eunle in Osobo, Obatala says Okana in Ire, and so on and so forth. But later the composite Odu came into play, and now it's Elegua says Eunle Meyi in Osobo, so on and so forth. So who actually gets the credit for this innovation? I don't know. Some stress that the composite Odu was always a thing. Some say it came from Ifa and incorporating what the Babalaos did and having a composite Odu. I don't know. But according to some, Efuche, possibly Latuan, possibly Oba Di Meyi, introduced the compound Odu to Ocha. Last page. I hope I got this. I got like 2 minutes left. Finally, Efuche decided that one does not have to be of the same lineage to participate in other lineages. Not only did she codify Ocha, but she unified the religion this as a religious structure. Ocha as a religious structure. Meaning that I, of being Pimiento, Subrama Trapito, me, personally, I can crown someone as the godparent. The Oyubona can be of the Coral lineage. And I can have Willie Ramos y Obailari, who's of the Millonarios lineage, to direct the entire ceremony. All with zero complications or conflict of interest. Why? Because Efuche said, look, we all come from different little villages or towns and places in Yoruba land. Now, maybe back in the motherland, we had our differences. I'm Oyo, your Yesha, your Shogbo, your Ileife, your Ketu. But here we are, Cabildo San Jose 80. Here we are, Havana. And unless we unify, the Santo you'd venerate will die with you. And the Santo I venerate will die with me. So we will take my Obatala, my devotedness to Obatala, will take your devotedness to Yamaya, your devotedness of Elegua, yada yada yada, so on and so forth, and build something under a single umbrella. As such, we can have our differences in opinion, which is the birth of different ramas, but as Africanas, as Africans, as Yoruba land, as one tribe, we will learn together, we will build together, and most importantly, we will work together regardless of rama. We are held together by a single banner, Havana, Ocha. And they did just that. All of the santeras of Havana worked each other's santos when a person was going to be initiated. They became each other's comadres. They became each other's yubonas. They worked each other's godchildren's ochas. Isn't that beautiful when you think about it? Doing away with the single or pure spiritual blood lineage for the sake of keeping Ocha alive. Efuche herself is now but a memory. Dying around 1903, though I've heard later numbers, I've said that before. I don't know if she has any direct descendants. We know that Latuan definitely has direct descendants. Efuche, as amazing as she was, she died in obscurity. As far as I know, there's no marked grave for her. And even though there's no record of her, barely if anything, her presence is still felt each time a new Yawo in Havana is born, or each time a new Yawo is born Havana style. It is because of Efuche and because of her goal of unifying Ocha. And I forgot to name that she is also called, I got like 10 seconds left, La Reformista de la Religión, Ña Rosalía Gramosa Abreu Efuche Ochosi Warikondo, Meibo Batala.